Animal populations experience an average decline of almost 70% since 1970, report reveals. Huge scale of human driven loss of species demand urgent action, say world's leading scientists. And God bless the scientists, because the scientists are literally pulling their hair out, and politicians and the barons of capital are like, so fucking what? We got cock rockets. Oh, the rest of y'all don't have cock rockets? Oh, well, that sounds like a y'all problem. From The Guardian, Earth's wildlife population has plunged an average of 69% in just under 50 years, according to a leading scientific assessment, as humans continue to clear forests, consume beyond the limits of the planet, and pollute on an industrial scale. From the ocean to the tropical rainforest, the abundance of birds, fish, amphibians, and reptiles are in free fall, declining on average by more than two-thirds between 1970 and 2018, according to the World Wildlife Federation and the Zoological Society of London. I'm 44. I'm 44. So my whole life, the planet has been losing wildlife at a massive rate. They go on to say that 2 years ago, the figure stood at about 68%. 4 years ago, it was at 60%. Oh, so we're losing wildlife by, almost 10% a year. Oh, that's excellent. Many scientists believe that we are living through the sixth mass extinction, the largest loss of life on planet Earth since the time of the dinosaurs. Fucking kill me. And that is being driven by humans. No, it is being driven by capitalism. Humans have fucking been here. Humans have been on the planet living in concert with the wildlife. It's capitalism. And again, that really pisses me off. Like, did humans just fucking arrive on the planet in the past 50 years? Oh, we just got here. Oh, no wonder we done fuck shit up. No, humans have been here. Capitalism is what's doing this. Sorry, I didn't lost my place. My bad. They called it the Living Planet Index. And it says the report's 89 authors are urging world leaders to reach an ambitious agreement for the COP15, oh Lord, Biodiversity Summit in Canada. And they are still trying to shoot for that. So the COP15 conference is happening in Canada this December. And the goal is to slash carbon emissions to limit global heating to below 1.5 degrees Celsius this decade to help to halt the rampant destruction of nature. And we all know that's not going to happen. But I have to say, and the reason it's not going to happen, again, there's no political will here to save the environment. I don't know what this looks like in other countries, but here in America, well, let me say this. In America, for older generations, I say maybe older millennials, Gen X, baby boomers, the environment usually in polling does not come up as top three or even top five of issues that Americans are concerned about. They're concerned about inflation. I mean, the inflation is a legitimate concern, but what the fuck is who cares how much food is going up if there's no habitable planet to reside upon? Yeah. And so, but I know Gen Z, this is a big deal for them, as well it should be. As well it should be. And I feel so terrible for them. I feel really bad for all of us, because even at some of our big ages, they were hammering to us young in elementary school about it's on us to save the planet. Oh, the Amazon's in trouble. I remember being in like the third grade looking at the Weekly Reader. Did you guys have the Weekly Reader in elementary school? It was like this weekly paper for kids where they would just routinely depress us as children with some of the news. Oh, the tigers and the lions are going extinct. Why are you telling this to school age children? Like, it's so sad. But that is the kind of grievous news that we have been saddled with for a very long time. and it's in the news in itself is bad and depressing, but the lack of action, the intentional inertia to take steps to stem this climate catastrophe that is occurring basically in different forms everywhere. I've seen no political will for this in my entire life. None coming from the United States of America. All these little incremental, suggestions. Oh, we're gonna have electric car stations. Dog, that horse has left the fucking barn, man. That shit has left the barn. And to keep it a whole fucking buck, basically. This push politically, especially from the Biden administration, to push towards electronic vehicles or electric vehicles, that's still going to have more harm to the climate because it's going to require the further mining and drilling for these precious metals, the lithium, all the shit that goes into iPhone batteries and electric vehicle car batteries. Like that is going to cause more climate disaster and more harm to the environment and more exploitation of the resources. So that doesn't even fucking help the problem. I hate it here. I hate it here so bad. But hold on. I'm not, you know what? I can't even go into to read this. Well, I'm going to read some of this. Hold on, hold on. So this is a very important thing too, because as global South countries have been saying for many, many years now, they are the ones bearing the brunt of climate disaster first. Not America, not Canada, not fucking Western Europe. Africa's feeling this shit. The Caribbean is feeling this shit. Latin America is feeling this shit. Back to the Guardian article. This is a very important point to make. Latin America and the Caribbean region, including the Amazon, has seen the steepest decline in average wildlife population size. Quote, this report tells us that the worst declines are in the Latin American region, home to the world's largest rainforest, the Amazon. Deforestation rates there are accelerating, stripping this unique ecosystem not just of trees, but of the wildlife that depends on them, and of the Amazon's ability to act as one of our greatest allies in the fight against climate change. If you could pop up that tweet that I put up, Will, from the Life, Caribbean Life News, and they echoed this point from this report that the Caribbean and Latin American region has seen a decline in animal and fish populations of 94% over the past 50 years, according to the analysis of biodiversity by the World Wildlife Fund, published on Thursday in the Living Planet Report 2022. So, globally, on average, 69% decline in animal and plant life, right? But the Caribbean and Latin America have seen 94% decline. That's sobering. And if you've traveled to the Caribbean in recent years, I was in Bahamas, maybe this is a while ago, maybe about 10 years ago. And my mother used to travel to the Bahamas in like the 70s, and she would tell me, oh, we went to Nassau, we went to Grand Bahama, and you walk in the water right there on the beach, and the fish would be swimming up to your feet, and you would see, evidence of wildlife, right? But when I went, no fish. There was no fish, none. My friend and I were riding a jet ski, and long story short, we got hit by a big wave, and I got tossed off the jet ski. And I was wearing a life jacket, and I can swim, so I wasn't concerned about drowning, but I was afraid that I was going to get bit by a shark, right? So later on in the trip, we did parasailing over the same sort of area where we were, and you could see straight down. The water was very clear. You could see straight down into the ocean. Shark, a shark. Wasn't there gonna be no fucking sharks? Wasn't no fish. Wasn't no fish, y'all. No fish. And that is got to be very sad for the people who live in the Caribbean, whom I would imagine a lot of them, or a not insignificant portion of them, rely on the ocean for food, right? If and I can't even get into all those floating piles of plastic debris that have been popping up in throughout the Caribbean. I think I've definitely seen stories about these floating trash piles in Dominican Republic. One of my favorite places, Rotan in Honduras, had a similar issue. Black and brown places are feeling this shit first. But the wild thing is, I don't know if privileged Americans think that this shit ain't coming. If it is already here, but it's about to get way worse. It's about to get way worse. The last little depressing nougat about this segment that I wanted to share with y'all has to do with birds. Has to do with the birds. If we could pop up that bird piece there, will, from stateofthebirds.org, organization that monitors bird health. State of the Birds 2022, y'all. Bird declines are reaching a tipping point. I just don't. I don't want to live on a planet that doesn't have birds, right? Or that doesn't have cheetahs, or that doesn't have elephants, or that doesn't have redwood forest, or that doesn't have the Amazon. But we are moving very quickly towards this hellscape. So let me read this very briefly from the Statement of the Birds. So in 2019, a study of 529 bird species with adequate long-term data for analysis, and they cited Science Rosenberg et al. Okay, found that over 300 of the species in North America were declining more than half of the bird species studied. Now, scientists with the Road to Recovery initiative have issued an alert for 90 declining bird species, birds that are not yet federally listed as threatened or endangered, but have lost half or more of their breeding population since 1970. The scientists further identified a subset of 70 tipping point species that could lose another half or more of their population in the next 50 years, based on recent trajectories and expert assessments. These tipping point species are high priorities for the scientists, for science and conservation. That's a whole nother conversation. I think Black Power Media did a segment about a show about conservation and the colonialism that the conservation movement is based upon. I certainly suggest that you check that out. So the tipping point species are priorities for scientists and conservationists because of their high vulnerability to extinction, high urgency, and steep population decline where known. All are included in the Birds of Conservation concern list of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Center and or state lists of species or greatest conservation need. So this is damning news. And y'all, the I'm pessimistic because I know what capitalism and greed mean. Like, they don't care if every bird on this planet goes. They don't care if every crab goes away. They don't care. But the fact is that there is something that can be done. And the pandemic really revealed that to us. While I was working at the Real News, I interviewed a NASA climate scientist, and we talked about how when the global lockdowns happened in areas that had high density of greenhouse gases and carbon emissions, particularly areas, well, not just including areas over China, but areas over China, over Western Europe, over North America, the greenhouse gases went away. Like, the air quality literally improved. We saw the pictures. Don't you guys remember the pictures coming out of India, where previous they could not see the Himalayas? I guess this was in New Delhi or somewhere. They couldn't see the mountains for all the smog, but during the global lockdowns, all of a sudden, oh, you could see the mountains in the distance because there's not a thick veil of smog over top of it. The planet has the ability to heal. Capitalism is determined to keep Earth sick. And by extension, it's going to not only kill, I mean, it's so arrogant of humans to think that we are somehow immune from this massive life decline that is happening to animal and plant life around us. We are all connected. So everything that we are doing to the planet is going to come back and do unto us. And I say unto the planet, planet, I am not the capitalist here. I am not the capitalist. This was not my idea. I did not sign up for this shit. And there's a lot of messaging, particularly around some of these climate stories, about, oh, here's what you can do as a consumer to lessen the impact. And it's like, cut the fucking shit, man. Cut it out. Sure, your gas powered vehicle is probably causing some greenhouse gases. It doesn't compare to the amount of pollution and environmental destruction that the US military executes in areas all around this planet, right? There is a serious situation happening right now in Guam. The people in Hawaii are experiencing a water crisis, all in due in part because of U.S. military activities. The military is the biggest polluter on the planet. And do you think there's any calls? Is any? You think Joe Biden is trying to dial that back at all? Fuck the planet. They got cock rockets. Fuck the planet. It's us that are gonna have to deal with these dire consequences. And as the not only the American but the global population continues to get older, right? Um, we have to consider the elderly and who will be elderly in the next 20 or 30 years, and disabled people when we're trying to figure out how to game plan to survive climate catastrophes. Because I assure you, the people who are least mobile, the people who um are disabled are going to be the ones who are forgotten about, right? We see this during hurricanes down in Florida. We've seen many elderly people die in nursing homes, not just in Florida, Louisiana too. Nobody makes a plan for the fucking old people or for the disabled folks. So the society is going to have to smarten up if survival is the game, right? Maybe climate catastrophe can be what COVID has been, right? A process of elimination of the so-called weak and undesirables, according to capitalism, right? I hate to talk about these stories, y'all, but I would be betraying future generations by not talking about this. And I know there's Black people who care about the environment. The indigenous people have always been, you know, stewards of nature, but it's not a story that comes up in just regular ass news, right? I mean, it does hither and thither, but then it goes away. So I just wanted to bring that up and pray for us and pray for us, or pray for an asteroid to put us out of our misery early. So anywho,